Hey guys, Jason Van Tatenhove of Oath Keepers here. Have another important story coming to you out of Texas this time. We have a rancher down there, Ken, whose family has been on their land since the early 1900s. The difference between this story and what's been happening with the Bundys and Lavoie and these other ranchers that we've been talking about is these guys own this land straight out. They actually own the deed. It's been passed down through his family. Used to belong to his grandfather, then went to his father, now went to him. His children are growing up there. The kicker of it is they've got a large amount of land there, and they're looking at taking close to half of it, if a little bit more. We go into the numbers a little bit further on in the interview here. But this is an important story. We're going to be bringing more and more information here, but we had a chance to sit down and talk with Ken and had him lay out exactly what's happening there in Texas. We've heard some rumors that the governor may step up and actually do the right thing here. He's sent some letters, him and the attorney general there in Texas, to the BLM. They seem to have been laughed off at this point, but he has been quoted as saying he's going to go out and plant a Molon Labe flag, a come and take it flag there in the Red River. Now, it's not just Ken and his family, it's affecting a 100-mile stretch, 100-plus-mile stretch of land all across the Red River there. So it's many, many families. It's a whole community that's being affected. Ken's case is very egregious just because it's his family home. It's the home that he grew up helping out around and has been the family center of his family home for generations now. And they're just going to take it. They're saying that the state of Texas never should have issued the deed, and there's obviously some real questions there on the legality of what the BLM is doing. They state that Texas never should have written the deed, and I really have to question that. So we're going to be looking into the legal standing as time goes on. And well, here is Ken and in mine's interview. Stuart Rhodes jumps in a little bit towards the end here as well. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope it's informational, but keep checking back. We're going to be giving updates on this situation, and we're ready to go if he needs to have some protection and a quick reaction force. We're talking about getting that all organized right now. Right now there is no stand-up. We're just getting information. We're just beginning to open a dialogue with the ranchers that are along that area. So hopefully we can resolve this without having a stand-up and a call to, but keep checking back, and we'll let you know as soon as that we have anything else that changes on this situation. So here's the interview. I hope you like it. Okay, Jason Van Taten of Oath Keepers here. I have on the line Ken Aderholt from Red River, Texas. Ken, you've been in the news a bit lately. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on? Tell us a little bit about yourself first, your family, and what you guys do down there in the Red River area.
I farm and ranch down here. I'm married, been married since '94. Got two sons. I farm and ranch down here along the Red River, run cattle, wheat, a little bit of hay, cotton some years. So just kind of make a living off the land.
And how long has your family been on this particular piece of land?
My grandfather bought this property in 1941.
And you own it outright, is that correct?
That is correct. I do own it. Growing up here on the river where my grandfather lives, I helped him build fences and water cows, feed cows, did all the stuff that most ranchers do. He died in '89. The land went to my father. He just leased it to me after that. I bought my grandfather's part of the cattle out. In '85 is when I actually started farming and ranching. I bought half the herd at that time, so half the cattle was his, half of them were mine, and it just went forward from there. Then I just started leasing the property from my dad after my granddad died in '89, and in '98, me and my wife moved to the home of where my grandfather lived since 1941.
So you've really been living the American dream there. This is what you want to be doing, right?
Well, that's just kind of what I always wanted to do. Some days are more difficult than others, but it's a good life.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening now, the interaction with the BLM? How did that begin?
It began in Christmas, right, a couple of weeks before Christmas of 2013. Local game wardens called a lot of us here along the river and told us the BLM was having a meeting in Wichita Falls, and we needed to come. They were trying to figure out how to manage this property along the river that they were claiming to own. Went to the meeting. They were setting up a scoping period. It lasted until here in about another week or 10 days. It's over with. So it lasted for almost 2 years on the public's input on what they want to do with this property along the river. And they had a bunch of maps and things up, and they had it marked in red what they were claiming. And at the time, when I seen these maps and this red, I thought they were just exaggerating it on the map to make their point. I didn't realize that they were actually claiming all that land at the time. I thought, surely not. But that is what happened. They were claiming it, and they moved the boundary within that department from the edge of the river up to the high bluff. And so that's the way it started, at a meeting in Wichita Falls.
Now, the BLM is generally in charge of managing public lands. This isn't public land, is it? This is private land. This is your private land. So on what authority are they claiming to be able to do this?
Unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for that. The people that we meet with and have these meetings with here in this area, they are just field workers. They're just saying this is the property, and they're also not giving us a defined boundary. They're just saying, some of them say things different. Some of them saying they're going to the bluff. Some of them have said they're going up on top of the bluff. They're not for sure until they get it surveyed. But they're moving the boundary south of the Red River anywhere from 300 to 400 yards, and in some cases up to 2.5 miles. But unless the property has been surveyed, which is down in Clay County, they will not give a definite answer on exactly where that boundary lies, and or who made the decision to move the boundary. They just claim they don't know. We don't know who did it.
Now, I've read in an article that the BLM has told you that the deed to your property should have never been issued. Is that true?
That is correct.
And what's their precedence in saying that?
They said that just Texas had no legal standing to provide a deed for that property, that this has been BLM property since the Louisiana Purchase.
Well, the BLM wasn't an entity at that point, was it?
No.
Okay.
Well, they didn't say government land. It's just this has been government land since the Louisiana Purchase. They claim that Texas or property owners never had the legal right to this property, and they're just now coming to figure out how they are going to manage it.
Wow. Now, this is not just affecting you, right? There are other families, other landowners that have their land at stake. Is that correct?
That is correct, for 116 miles along this river.
How many families do you know that are being affected by this personally?
I wouldn't have a good. I don't know. I mean, it's a long ways. There's a lot of people I don't even know. They're in Wichita County and east of Pumpkin Center. But there's a lot of people and families getting affected. I know of just my neighbors here and the few people I've talked to, 25 to 30. Now,
really, the part that really caught me more than any of it was the fact that you may be losing your home, the home that your grandfather lived in and has been handed down to you, where your children are now living. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How did they decide that home was now going to be their property?
Well, I was on the phone with Mr. Larry Levesque right after that meeting there in Wichita Falls, the initial meeting, and we had to have our input put in by like the 3rd of February. And I called him on the 28th, just questioning him. And on that phone conversation, I told him about the deeded property and what I'd been doing here for so many years. He said that none of that mattered. He said, we're going to the hard tree line up on the high bluff. And I was standing outside my home on the phone with him at that time, and I said, my home will be included in that. And he said, well, you may have a problem. You need to write that down on your paper about your concerns and how it's going to affect you. You need to write all that down, that your home could be involved, and be sure and send it in to the BLM.
Wow. Now, what implications, if this were to go through, how would this change your life? How would that affect you and your family?
Well, it would be a pretty big deal. I mean, I don't really know what we would do. Haven't really thought a lot about that yet. I don't know that we would. I don't know. We would. I guess we just have to locate elsewhere, build a new home somewhere. But it would be a hard blow to my family and I and many of my neighbors up and down this river. It would be I guess it'd be kind of like a natural disaster, an earthquake coming and just blowing everything away, and then you lose all that land on top of it.
Did this take you by surprise? Did you realize that this type of thing was going on in our country, in your area there?
I did not. Of course, I see the news like everything else and knew that our government, they do things that are questionable at times and getting a little too big, but I never thought anything like this could actually happen on deeded property that's been paid tax on for since '41. I never, in my wildest dreams, would have ever thought anything like that could actually happen.
Now, the governor there has put out some letters. He's basically, him and the attorney general, I believe, of the state, have sent some letters to the BLM that seem to have been brushed off by the BLM. But how has the interaction been with the local representatives, ranging from the governor to your state reps? How has that been? Have they been supportive? Have they been helping? What's going on there?
Well, the governor, he had a rally when he was running for governor back a year and almost a half ago, and he said that he would not let this happen. Haven't heard a lot of comments from him since then, other until yesterday morning. They said he had a press release talking about it. I did not see it. Our Congressman Thornberry has got a bill trying to get through the House right now, trying to clarify the boundary dispute, and he's going to try to get it fixed up through legislation, but I'm hearing that it's going to have a tough time getting through and could take 1 to 2 years to come up for a vote through the Senate. They're making some changes and a lot of issues with that. I don't know exactly what to think of all that, but it's taken a long time. Went to Washington in May of 2014, visited with Thornberry. He said he was going to get right on this bill, and he did start working on it. They had to go in and write it, clarified it. It took a while to get it written and perfected, but it has not came up for a vote yet in Congress, in the House. It's still pending. It has just recently made it through the subcommittee.
Now, has the BLM given you a timeline as to when they may start taking action and claiming some of your property? Is it feasible that legislation would get passed in time to help you out personally?
Doubtful. The last meeting that we had a week and a half or so ago in Fort Worth, their scoping period ends in about a week from now on the public's input on what to do with this property. And then they are going to analyze it and try to figure out how they are going to manage this property. And that decision is supposed to be made by summer of next year. And they said so from the summer of next year, once they figure out how they are going to manage this property, they will start going forth with that agenda sometime after summer of next year.
How has the response been from your neighbors, from your community? Are they willing to stand with you? Are you guys looking to fight this? What is your plans right now? Are you going to just let this happen?
No, I don't think we're going to let this happen. There's a lot of people just kind of like me. They're just kind of a little bit shocked by all of this. And I think as long as the talking is going on and they're scoping and and they're planning. I think everybody's just kind of sitting by and not doing too much or not real concerned. It's going to change, though, if they actually start coming onto our property. That's kind of when we'll be in a new ball game at that time.
Hey, this is Stuart Rhodes. I wanted to ask a question. You said that they are now telling you they're going to go all the way to the bluff. Now, what did they used to do until this point? Obviously, they didn't do that in their claimed control of the river. What was the boundary before? How did they determine the boundary before? It was
the gradient boundary along the Red River, and that is normally right where the vegetation line is.
Explain to folks what that means. What do you mean the gradient boundary?
Well,
like on the bank?
You mean the bank?
You mean the bank?
The bank that holds the river in place.
Right.
The Red River is prone to flooding, and it kind of moves around a little bit. It's sandy. Here where I'm at, it's real sandy. On down in Clay County, it's not quite so sandy. It's a little bit redder where I've looked at it. Well, it's still sandy, but it just doesn't erode quite as much. But it's just the bank that holds the river. It's on its natural course. And usually just a few feet from there will be the vegetation line. And
that was where they, for as far as you can remember, that's where they claimed jurisdiction or control is just up into the actual end of the bank where the bushes began, right?
Yes, and they owned from there north to the middle of the channel. So it was just a little slither of land right there along the southern bank of the Red River that they actually owned. Yes, usually, I mean, sometimes it may be as much as 50 feet, depending on, in places the river's narrow and deep, some places it's spread out a lot and shallow. So,
right.
If the river's 100 yards wide, it could, they get from the middle there to the edge of the bank.
And so now they're saying rather than a few feet or 50 feet at the most, they're going to go beyond the beginning of vegetation up to the top of the bluff. That's on the other side, right? Okay.
Now that's what Levesque told me. Now some of these other McGuire, a few of them, they said they're going to the bottom of the high bluff. They said, no, we're just going to the bottom of the high bluff. So I don't know if they know. And they'll claim that they don't know exactly. They say, we're not the ones we're not the surveyors. We're just, this is the general idea. And they dispute themselves a little on what they say. I don't know that they're being dishonest. I just don't think that they all know exactly.
What's their explanation for this change from instead of just going to the gradient, what do you call it, the gradient boundary?
Well, they have redefined the gradient boundary. They're saying the gradient boundary now is the high bluff.
But that's something they've never done before.
No.
And on your land, you're talking about... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The surveyors have said that was not what they intended whenever this 1923 survey took place, and there was some hearings about it. They clarified. They were talking about the bank that holds the river in its natural flow, not during flooding, during its natural flow.
So now they're saying, oh no, we mean any time, or the boundary is now any land the river might touch even during a flood. Is basically what they're saying. Okay.
Yes, they're going to the high bluff.
Yep. And that takes it on your land. That's how many feet from where they used to be to where they're going to go?
I would say it's a good half a mile.
How many yards? Half a mile.
Yes.
If that's not a land grab, what is it? So their own rules they've been living under, or they've been operating under since they began, was the common sense thing, just to the top of the bank of the actual river, and now they're saying, oh no, we're redefining that term to now mean to the top of the bluff.
Correct.
Because the river might go. I mean, is the river ever going to get to the top of the bluff during a flood?
It never has.
But they're just using that as their new rule. So they're making their own rules. It'd be like if I was your property, I was next to you on a piece of property, and I said, oh no, the property line now is on the other side of your house because I say so. That's pretty much what they're doing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I've
now, Mr. Henderson. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I've asked these field workers how that happened, how that got changed, and they had absolutely no comments. No comment.
Now, I read that the plan, according to them, their own words, is they plan on putting in bike trails and nature walks and a bunch of stuff like that. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And bird watching, to open up to the Boys and Girls Club. They have a whole realm of things in their scope that they could decide to use. Whatever is best for the public.
Right. That sounds great for public land, but this is your property. This is private land.
I consider this my property. I've got a deed to it.
Well, I mean, up until now, everyone considered it your property. The only people that are saying it's not is now the BLM, making their own rules for themselves.
Correct.
Now, Mr. Henderson, one of the other ranchers that had a dispute in the past, his story is a little different, right? In his, it was a dispute between him and an Oklahoma private landowner because the river had shifted, and so the Oklahoma private landowner claimed now belonged to him. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Had a flood in the 70s. The river got up and changed courses completely, and it cut Mr. Henderson's property in half. The land on his property on the north side of the river, the Oklahoma rancher started taking possession of it. They got into a court battle. Henderson didn't have any money to fight, and he just didn't have any money to hire attorneys. That particular judge just deemed it BLM property. He said, "I'm tired of y'all fighting. I'm tired." It's just BLM land, and that happened I think in 1980.
And that was a Texas state judge.
Yes. No.
Okay.
I'm not for sure if it was a Texas state or an Oklahoma. I'm not 100%. I think it was Texas, but I'm not for sure about that.
Okay, no sweat. But that's different. I mean, that's a dispute between two private landowners, but what's interesting about that though is that the judge ruled that no, this is federal land, and how many acres was taken from him and given to the feds?
I believe it was around 140 was taken from him, 140 acres.
And do you think that has any?
He owed money on that property, and he had to keep making his payments on it. But really, he didn't like that. No, I'm not kidding.
Wow. So does that relate to this in any way? I mean, are they taking that as their precedent for why they can do what they're doing? Are they making any arguments like that, or is it not really related?
Could you repeat that?
Does that what happened to Mr. Henderson? Does that have anything to do with what's happening to you?
I think it has something to do with it. It kind of gave them an idea on what this judge declared. That I think they kind of decided to go the whole 116 miles with it. They kind of used it as a landmark decision. And
okay. So the judge went to the bluff. Is that what he did? He went to the bluff and said, to the bluff on either side, the BLM owns it.
Yep.
Okay, that's what he did. Okay.
Yes.
So that's their precedent they're hanging their hat on. But they didn't use it for 30 years, but now all of a sudden they're going to use that as their precedent for going all the way to the bluff on either side.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Well, I guess the big question is one big question is what's your sheriff say about this? Is your sheriff making any indication that he's willing to stand up and defend your property rights?
No, I think no, not really. Our sheriff's department, our county judge has been to some of these meetings. Our commissioners have been to some of these meetings, and I think right now everyone is just hoping that this gets worked out legally. Maybe it will. Don't know.
When you mean by that, you mean you're hoping that your congressman can get legislation passed through Congress to protect the land that you've owned, since your family owned it.
Yes. That's kind of where our elected officials are at right now. They're hoping that this gets worked out through legislation.
Right. Now, what about a legal fight? You said some of the neighboring landowners have hired an attorney?
They are going in that direction. I don't know if they've actually hired attorneys, but some of them are leaned in that direction for sure.
Right. Well, it doesn't hurt to fight it in every kind of court. The court of public opinions are very important also, but fight it in the actual courts if you can.
Right.
But, this is the problem we see across the country, is that it's chipping away at private property rights, whether it's the land outright or the use of the land, what you can and can't do on your own property. We're seeing this across the country. How do your neighbors feel about being united and standing up? Are they pretty united?
It right now, I think that my neighbors are a lot like our elected officials. They're just hoping this gets worked out through them. But the ones that I have talked to have said once that changes and they start coming onto our property, trying to make managing decisions or trying to survey it or send the EPA out or the endangered species people, that's whenever it's all going to change. They're not going to allow that to happen on their property.
Because one day they're going to come with men with guns to evict you and your wife and kids from your house. That's where this is leading, unless you're, that's why, where's the sheriff? Where's the governor? These are the folks that are supposed to be standing up for you. I mean, this was originally Texas land, right? And then your family was deeded this land from Texas?
Yes, that is correct. And I have been to our courthouse looking at the records, and I don't have any trouble taking this property back to 1907. After that, I've got to do a little bit more investigating. Their book, they had a fire at the courthouse back sometimes in that era, and the records before that are in a different place, and it's down in the basement, and I've got to go look for it and all that. But don't know if I can find it or not. Don't know if it was part of the fire or not. But we go back to 1907 without any problem at all.
So you got clear title to 1907 from the state of Texas?
Yes.
Or from private landowners. Before that, it was the state of Texas?
Yes.
Okay. So when Texas was a republic, obviously it owned the land. And when Texas joined the Union as a republic, it owned the land, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's even stronger than the status of other states. This was not part of the Louisiana Purchase, was it? Because this was Mexican land. It was Mexico, wasn't it?
Yes.
So it became Texas after the rebellion against Santa Anna. You were your own country, and then you, by your own choice, joined the Union, right?
Correct.
Okay, and that was your land. All was part of that whole process.
Yes.
Okay,
it was.
That's what I thought. Okay, and this was never disputed as being, between Texas and Oklahoma. This was land that was never in dispute between them.
Never has had any problems in this area between Texas and Oklahoma.
Gotcha. So it's a little bit different than Mr. Henderson's area.
Right, and just to say, this property where I'm at right now, the river has taken over hundreds of my acres. When I was a little boy growing up, the river here at my particular property was way over on the north side, and my grandfather he ran several hundred mama cows down there, and the river, as flooding occurred, it would change courses and back and forth, kind of meandering, but through the years, it on the north side of the valley, it kind of built it up with sand and silt, and it made it a little bit higher over there. So since about 1985, the river has been steadily coming south. And we had a lot of rain in May and June of this year, and I lost about another 70 acres to the river, which that's nature. That's the way the life is. That's just the way it is.
You can deal with that. Right.
I can deal with that.
What you can't deal with is arbitrary bureaucrats taking advantage and redefining their own terms to say, oh, no, we own not just this, but all of that, including your house. That's
Correct.
a different ballgame.
Correct.
What do you want to see done about this? I mean, I know you all had a rally there last year. Was it Abbott that put that rally on as the candidate for governor? Was he the one that orchestrated that?
I think probably it was. I think at that time it was kind of right after all this information came out from the BLM on their that was when they were beginning their scoping process and how they was going to manage it. I think it was a big deal down in Clay County with all the landowners, and they were kind of didn't know where to go. So our local judges and all. It was election time. It was a good rally. It was good publicity. So we had the rally and we're not.
I'm reading a quote here. I'm reading a quote here from last year, an article where it quotes Abbott as the candidate for governor, putting out a statement, press release saying, "We have one message for the BLM. Come and take it," is what he said, which is a reference to Texas history, right?
Correct.
So, hardcore statement that he's not going to let them do this. And so now we need to see whether he's going to prove up, whether he's going to keep his promise during his election campaign.
Correct.
And actually stand up for you and not let them take your land.
Right.
What do you think is going to happen? Do you think he's got the cojones?
I don't know. I hope that he does. He hasn't been talking about this situation much at all lately. I don't know. It's
well, Jason. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Jason, didn't we see a statement from the governor yesterday saying much the same thing?
Yeah, there was a letter
along the bay.
There was a letter written along with by the governor and also, I believe, the state attorney.
And it says Malong Bay in it.
There was a reference to the come and take it. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to see that.
I will include those PDFs.
Like
I will include those PDFs in the notes of this show.
Right. I mean, the governor of Texas is going to make statements as a candidate, and then later on as governor, come and take it along the way. That means we're not going to let you have it. So he needs to mean that. He needs to follow up on it because these ranchers are going to be relying on that.
Right.
Ken, is there anything?
One problem that I have, and I feel like me and my fellow neighbors, is that I'm not a politician, nor am I big government like BLM. We want this to be solved. We don't want a standoff where they leave and then a year later it's happening again. We would like to get this fixed from now on so that it doesn't come up for my children or my grandchildren down the road. We would like to see this problem completely get fixed. And one thing we have learned, we've had some power lines come through us recently in recent years, and we have been lied to and deceived, and it's just not been a good experience. When I talk to Thornberry's office and some of our politicians, our judges, BLM is saying they are going to work with our legislators to get this fixed. We want this fixed. They have told me personally, we want away from the Red River. We're tired of it. It's getting us a black eye, and we need out. But at the same time,
field agents are saying that's the field agents,
that's
though,
correct.
right?
But
that's
exactly right. At the same time, though, they're saying that they continue to move forward. They're still doing their scoping. They're still going through the process. And when I've asked them about that, I said, well, why are y'all still involved in this? They said, we've got to go through the process. It's law that we have to go through the process. And that's the part that we don't like. We don't, if their process includes sending out the EPA or the endangered species or any of them other departments or agencies, we don't want that happening.
Well, I'm looking at an article right now where it says that the BLM is opposing the legislation by your congressman. So when it comes to the BLM itself, maybe the field agents want to wash their hands of it and want to be out of it, but the BLM has issued a statement saying they oppose the legislation to fix this. They don't want it fixed. They want your land.
Right. I would not disagree with that. No, I mean, you're right.
Here, the trail. I'm looking at this article right here. BLM opposes Thornberry bill to resolve Red River land dispute.
That I have not read that. That does not surprise me. To me, if they wanted it fixed, they could fix it. If the people in the upper parts of the BLM that makes the decisions, if they wanted this to go away, they could make it go away.
Well, they could just go back to the way they used to define the bank of the river. It was where the river stopped and the foliage began. That's a real no-brainer, and that might shift. And you're fine with dealing with that. Like you said, that's an act of nature. But they've decided on their own to create this dispute.
That's correct. And also, I mean, I'm a little bit fuzzy on some of this part because this is a very complicated situation. But I have talked to some surveyors. Some surveyors have been at these meetings, and they have said that this was not what the survey intended. That BLM is that they're interpreting it completely wrong. And I've got some of the surveyors' names that I could probably look up and give you guys if y'all wanted to talk to them. I mean, they're very clear and confident that they're right and that BLM is wrong.
Here's that statement I'm reading. Washington. The Bureau of Land Management objected Tuesday to Representative Mac Thornberry's bill to remove federal claims along the Red River, arguing the plan would shortchange the government. Here's a quote from Steve Ellis, BLM Deputy Director. It says, the department shares the goal of legislation. It cannot support the bill as currently written, saying that it could transfer public land without fully compensating U.S. taxpayers. So they're claiming this land now belongs to them, and this bill would deprive the taxpayers of their land. That's what they're saying.
Wow. When was that article written?
Hold on a second. I just walked away from my computer. Let's see here. Published July 29th, 2014. Oh, that was a year ago. That's last year.
I think
Ken, I would very much like the names of those surveyors because I would like to try to contact them.
Okay.
We'll do that after the interview.
For you. Yeah.
Well, Ken, is there anything people can do right now to help support the legislation? Is there anything else you want to add to this that we haven't touched on?
No, I'm trying to think for just a second.
No, and this says here that Thornberry raised the point that look, they're still making payments on this land, and how fair would it be to make payments on land that you no longer control? I mean, you'd be in the same position as Henderson, right? If you still owe money on land, you're still making payments to the prior landowner for land that has now been taken from you, right?
That is exactly correct. And I do have a place in Wichita County that I bought in 2010. It had been in my family since back in the late 40s. It was my grandfather's brother's wife's family. But my grandfather and my father and I farmed this property and ranched it until 2010, and it just got passed down to so many descendants that they just couldn't keep up with it any longer. They decided to sell it, and they're claiming about 240 acres on that, the BLM. And I'm still making payments on that. So yeah, that would be devastating. I've drilled water wells down there and put up a new fence. I've made lots of improvements, and that's something else.
Go ahead.
We have a clouded title now. You can't sell the land. You can't buy it. Improvements, all that is stopped. People are normally sprigging grass, putting up fences, digging tanks, water wells, a host of things that you just do. And all that stopped now because they don't know if they own the land or not.
Right, so they want to put the work in. Are they being told they cannot go out there and work on it?
You can. They have not told us that we can't, but if you need to go borrow money for an improvement, they're not going to loan you the money to do it.
Well, why would you want to do that anyway, right? Expose yourself to more loss.
Correct.
So what's the plan going forward besides waiting on hopefully getting the congressman to get his bill passed? Are you guys into another rally, or what's your short-term plan?
There is no short-term plan other than some people, my neighbors up and down the river, are planning now to hire, talking to some attorneys. Right. The attorneys that we've been talking to have said this is a no-brainer. They don't think this is going to be a big deal. They said they are wrong. They are interpreting everything wrong. This we should not have any problems in court at all with this situation. But so that's probably the only short-term plan that I'm aware of. Is as far as our legislators, I talked to Caleb, that's Mac Thornberry's man in Amarillo, and he's still got confidence in the bill and that we're going to get this problem solved, but it's just going to take time, years to get this done.
Well, that's who should take care of this. Congress has authority over BLM and should put a stop to this. That's ground zero. But then the governor has a responsibility to enforce the sovereignty of Texas.
Correct.
Because what they're saying is that they're taking this land because it never belonged to you. They always owned it. Texas never owned it, even though, like I said before, the history of Texas is pretty unique. It was its own independent country. I don't know how they could ever claim that Texas never owned this land. So there you go. You got a problem on your hands with these bureaucrats, and the governor's got to stand up. Maybe it might help to do another rally. I would encourage you neighbors to talk about that and consider doing it, because then it puts the pressure on the politicians to get their act together, whether it's through the state, it's the governor and the state legislature asserting their rights, which is their duty and responsibility, or the congressman too. So this needs to be done. So let us know if you need help with that, or if you decide to put one on. We will help get the word out, and we will help get people there. And as always, you've got Texans who are willing, and other folks from other parts of the country who are willing to stand up. So if you need help, just let us know. Okay.
Okay, I sure will, and I very much appreciate it, and all that you guys have done, and with y'all, what y'all have offered so far, and that's very much appreciated from me and my neighbors, and it makes us sleep a lot better at night, and we really appreciate it.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. But I really think Texans need to stand up. That's why I encourage you to do a rally. What you need is the governor has said along the way, I think it's probably time for the Texas people to say, come and take it. We're not going to let you have this.
Right.
And the stronger the resolve of the people, the stronger the resolve of the governor and the politicians. So a lot of times politicians need a little bit of support in keeping their promises.
Right.
So
I agree 100% with that. And I'm 50, I just turned 50. I try to learn from past mistakes like most people. And, I've just learned you just can't depend on politicians a lot when you really, really need them. Not saying that's the case here, but I'm just saying in the past, that's the norm. And hopefully this situation will be different, but I have a whole lot more confidence in me and my neighbors and an organization like yours than I would of politicians.
Well, unfortunately, it's a rare politician who is a Sam Houston. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So we'll see if Governor Abbott, and he sounds like one. We'll see if he proves up and acts like one. We'll find out.
Right. Yeah, I guess we'll see.
Well, thank you for coming on and talking to us. And I'm going to be in Texas. We're doing a summit on the border coming right up. I believe it's December 6th. I just found out. We'll be there anyway, talking about the border issue, and the fact that we're putting together a call up to Texas veterans to go down to the border and protect ranchers against the cartels. But while we're at it, I think we're going to be discussing this issue too. Because whether it's cartels or the BLM, I don't care who the bad guy is, if they're running over roughshod over Texans and taking their land that they've ranched on for generations, we're going to stand against them. So we're going to put out an invite out to you and their fellow ranchers to come on down and tell your story. There's going to be a gathering of Texas veterans first and foremost. We're going to start at Texas veterans first, and then we'll branch it out to folks from other parts of the country, veterans who are not Texans.
Okay, and when is that?
December the 6th is going to be the meeting in Dripping Springs, Texas is going to be the meeting. We'll get you the information, and we'll put a press release out about that and let folks know. Main point there is to bring Texas veterans together, because it should never be a situation where Texans, like what's going on down the border, they're being offered the silver or the lead. They're being run off their own land by the cartels, and we just have to wonder where the hell are the Texas veterans. And so we're going to do a call up, and retired General Brown, a Texas general, is going to be issuing this formal call-up and calling on Texans to stand up and defend their own sovereignty. They're being invaded by the cartels.
Right. That's good.
So while we're at it, we'll discuss this issue too. I think it's important for Texas veterans to understand what's happening in your area. So.
Right. Well, I very much appreciate that. Me and my neighbors, and we thank you all for that and all that you've offered to do. And hopefully this situation will not escalate.
Well, if the politicians keep their promises and do what they say they're going to do, then there'll be no need for it to escalate into anything.
Right.
And I want to stress to folks, this is very different than the Bundy situation in Nevada. This was always private land. This was never public land, state or federal. This was private land that belonged to you and your family. Like you said, you go all the way back to 1907. So this is a very different animal. This is far worse. That was bad enough. This is far, far, far worse than that. This is the taking of private property. And I think the logic behind it is a navigable river. They claim authority over all navigable rivers. And I want to remind all the listeners that if you can float a canoe down your creek next to your house, I bet you they're going to consider that navigable. And they might do the same exact thing across the country, start using this precedent here to take land off of creek beds and up bluffs and up to hillsides all over the country. Don't be surprised if they do. In fact, you should expect it. So I think we need to nip it in the bud. The camel's nose is sticking over the tent. They need a good hard stomp in Texas so they don't do it to everyone across the country.
Right. I agree with that. Water is a big issue down here with the drought that we've been having. So that a lot of people are thinking that and oil is more than likely what's behind all this.
Oil? How's that working?
Well, we don't have any production here on my end, but down on the Clay County end, there is some production, and yeah. And I was talking on the phone, and like I say, these comments are being made to me at times. It kind of blows my mind sometimes when I'm on the phone with these BLM guys. But I was on the phone with one 2 weeks ago, 2 to 3 weeks ago, and I told him, I said, don't want the EPA and all. And he said, well, we don't have any plans to come into Will Barker County to do any of our surveying or scoping right now. He said, I don't know why we'd want to go up there anyway. There's no production in your area, no oil production in your area. Now, he said that. Now, whether it's he knew what he was talking about, I don't know, but he did make that comment.
That's not surprising. Much like with the gold miners in Oregon and Montana, it's funny how the BLM always wants land that has mineral value or some kind of a serious cash flow value down the road.
Right.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
If you can find out more about that, please let us know.
Okay, I will. I sure will.
Okay. Well, is there anything we can do for you right now other than just putting this out?
I don't think so.
Okay.
You've done a lot, and if there's anything else comes up, I'll be sure and give you guys a shout. And like I say, I really appreciate everything.
You bet. You got support from folks across the country. There's other disputes like this going on all over the place, and I think the people have started to become aware that it's not just innocent bureaucrats trying to do their job. This is an agenda to take away the land from the American people and strip them of their property rights, one chip at a time, one property at a time. And I think the people are starting to, become aware of that and also tired of it. They understand that if they just continue to let them do it, they're never going to stop. It's going to keep going until there's no longer rural America. They'll take all the land.
That's right. And that's the way they do it, just a little piece at a time.
Right.
Right. So I certainly appreciate it. It's good. It's good to visit with you guys, and I appreciate everything. And also, it's I've mentioned the other day, it's really given me a lot of confidence. It's easy to kind of get mulled down in the system and to see all the corruption and hate going on in our country nowadays and all the bad things that are going on. It's good that guys like you are out there, not only just out there, but out there willing to help and do your part. And that's that makes me and my neighbors feel a lot better that there are actually it's one thing saying it, but actually standing up and helping and doing the things that y'all do. That's what makes this nation great, and I applaud y'all for that.
Well, we appreciate that. We'll do what we can to help you. The big thing we want to see is for Texans stand up. It's critical that your neighbors be united. The more united you are, the better. And then go from there, your fellow Texans. Hopefully this was resolved through legislation or through the courts. But if you need people to stand up, I think you'll get them. But it should be Texans first and foremost, right?
That's right.
So that's what we'll do, that call out to the veterans of Texas, and we'll put this on the table and make sure that they understand that if it comes right down to it, they need to be there for you. So we'll make sure that happens. We'll make sure you've got a good roster of hardcore Texans who are willing to show up if they need to.
Okay. Well, that's nice knowing, and like I say, I very much appreciate it, and all you guys have offered to do it. I thank you all very much.
Thank you. God bless.